Why don't you marry me instead? I'm a better match for you than that plain Amelia, my sister said, draping her arm over my husband's shoulder and sidling up to him. At that moment, all the restraint I had managed to hold on to crumbled. The tightly wound thread within me snapped, and I shouted, "Stop fooling around. You've always been like this." Then I lunged at my sister. She toppled over, still caught in her awkward position, her wide eyes locked onto mine. A hush fell over the scene. This is the story of the chaos and my dreadful sister and I. My name is Amelia, and I am 27 years old. After graduating from the literature department of a state university, I've been working as a librarian at a public library. During my lunch break, I checked my smartphone and saw a message from my older sister, Isabella. "I'm going to use your blue sandals. They still look new, but that's fine, right?" I sighed, knowing she hadn't changed. Isabella had always been like this. Even as kids, if I had something she wanted, she would quickly take it, get bored, and then toss it back to me. Despite being family, she was incredibly beautiful, adored by adults, and often likened to a French doll. She attended a prestigious private university on recommendation and even won a beauty pageant there. Now, she uses her looks as a receptionist at a reputable company, living a life straight out of a fairy tale. In contrast, I am quite plain with a typical American face. People often tell me, "Amelia, you look like a traditional doll." Maybe it's my sister's constant bullying, but I've always been shy and introverted. While Isabella played with dolls, I would sit alone quietly reading a book. But I was content with that. Dreaming of a life surrounded by books, I worked hard toward that goal, and now I work as a librarian, a job I've always wanted. Processing checkouts, scanning barcodes, and finding books for library patrons is my daily routine. As I work, memories from high school often surface. Attending the same school as Isabella was exhausting, constantly hearing comments like, "Is this what Isabella's sister is like?" My one solace was writing book reviews of my favorite books as part of the library committee's activities. While most high school students focused on clubs and relationships, I kept writing, hoping others would appreciate the charm of my favorite books, even if I knew no one would read them. However, there was one person who would eagerly devour my reviews and borrow the books I recommended one by one. This male student was a year ahead of me, and although we never spoke beyond the borrowing process due to my introverted nature, I remembered his name well from the library card. I often found myself wondering about him, how he was doing, if he still found joy in reading books. He was the one who ignited my passion for literature, the person who made me continue to cherish books. Then, one day, a marriage proposal arrived for my older sister Isabella. At the age of 28, it was only natural for such discussions to arise during a family gathering. Isabella dramatically tossed the blind date photos and the man's profile onto the table, startling me mid-meal. "What's he like?" my mother inquired. "He's just a chubby, nerdy-looking guy currently working as a temp," Isabella replied disdainfully. "Why do I have to go on a blind date with him?" she grumbled. I couldn't help but interject, "Well, if you're not interested, just reject him." Isabella sighed, "But he's related to an executive at our client's company. I can't afford to offend him." Then a gleam crossed her face as she turned to me, "Oh, I know. Amelia, why don't you go on the blind date instead?" I was taken aback by her suggestion. "What, me?" I stammered. Isabella hastily continued, "You're quite the respectable nerd yourself, aren't you? You might hit it off with him. Since you're not exactly a knockout, he might be perfect for you. Please take my place this weekend." I hesitated, feeling uneasy about the idea. "But I don't want to go either, and it would be dishonest to the other party." "How could I explain going in your place?" Isabella insisted, "It'll be fine. As long as you go, just don't embarrass me. Take the photos and profile." Reluctantly, I accepted the task, though I couldn't help but emit a surprised sound as I examined the materials. "Is there a problem?" Isabella asked, sensing my hesitation. No, no problem at all. Thank you, Isabella. I'll give it a shot, I replied, mustering a smile. Isabella grinned.
Ah.
So you actually like that chubby nerd? Well, they're all yours now. Here's to the birth of the nerdy couple. Ignoring her teasing tone, I braced myself for the upcoming blind date, uncertain of what to expect. I continued to study the blind date photo and the man's profile. On the day of the blind date, I apologized to him for Isabella's abruptness and expressed my desire to go on the blind date with him instead. The man sitting across from me was indeed a little chubby and had a hint of a nerdy aura about him, but he looked exactly as I remembered. The man I was meeting with was none other than the one who used to borrow books after reading my reviews. He looked at me curiously and said, "Were you by any chance the librarian at our high school?" "Yes, that's me," I replied, recognizing him as well. From there, we immediately struck up a conversation about our high school days and our shared love of books, marking the beginning of my relationship with him. His name was Samuel, and he had been in the same class year as Isabella, though she seemed to have no memory of him. During one of our dates, Samuel told me honestly, "Amelia, if Isabella had come instead of you, I would have turned her down. Her reputation precedes her, and not in a good way. However, knowing Isabella, she would have probably dismissed me first." "I'm truly sorry about my sister's past behavior," I said, "but I'm glad to reconnect with you, Samuel. I think you're wonderful. If you're self-conscious about your appearance, why don't we work on improving it together?" "You're right," Samuel agreed. "I've been so focused on work that I've neglected exercise and my appearance. I'll make an effort so you won't be disappointed." "I'm glad to hear that," I reassured him, "but know that your appearance has never been an issue for me." Our conversations and dates flowed smoothly, fostering a genuine connection between us. I received a marriage proposal from Samuel, and we decided to tie the knot. My sister, who initially remarked that she had seen the fat guy's face before, did not attend the event. Nonetheless, our families gathered for the occasion, showering us with warmth and blessings. We found a new home and began building our life together. On our wedding day, as we prepared to walk down the aisle, my sister couldn't resist mocking me. "Getting married in a church these days? So typical of plain old Amelia. That dress makes you look like a classic American doll." I tried to brush off her comments, asking her to please refrain from negativity on such an important day. Samuel and his family soon arrived, and I greeted them warmly despite my sister's insults clouding my mood. When Samuel, dressed in a traditional suit, made his entrance, my sister let out a surprised, "What?" It was no wonder she was taken aback. Samuel had worked diligently alongside me to transform his appearance, and he now looked strikingly handsome. Before the ceremony began, my sister leaned in and whispered, "He looks nothing like the photo from before." I explained, "Samuel has put in a lot of effort. He always had a handsome face, but he looked lackluster in the previous photo due to being overweight and having an unflattering haircut." "I thought he'd have plastic surgery," my sister said with sarcasm. "It's quite something that a porcelain doll like you could marry a man who now looks like a movie star." Despite my sister's snide remarks, we made it through the wedding ceremony and celebrated with a small reception at the church surrounded by our closest loved ones. As we prepared to leave with hearts full of happiness, my sister approached us, drunk, and said, "Hello, Samuel. Thank you for marrying my ugly little sister." Samuel responded calmly, "Well, Amelia Carteris, far from ugly. Thank you for being here today. It's time you head home now." My sister ignored me and continued, "So, Samuel, you've changed your appearance, but what about your job? You're a temp, right?" "Yes, I'm currently working as a temp," he confirmed. I couldn't stand having a husband who's a temp. "I'm dating a startup CEO, and we might get married soon," my sister said smugly. "Congratulations," I said, but Samuel gently restrained me from saying more. "Thank you for coming today. Please take care on your way home," he added. My sister left after her final comment, and I turned to Samuel, apologizing for her behavior. He reassured me, it's okay. People like her rarely change. But Amelia, you've had a tough time with her. Let's focus on our happiness from now on. Thank you, Samuel, I said, grateful for his support. And so began my married life with Samuel. In truth, he was working as a temp while pursuing his dream of becoming a novelist. His love for reading had grown after discovering my book reviews, which inspired his passion in high school. I wrote book reviews that inspired Samuel to start writing himself. So far, he's had a few pieces published in literary magazines, which is an impressive achievement. Although he earns money from his manuscripts, he still faces financial uncertainty, so he balances his job as a temp with his writing. Samuel, I have a job too, and we have some savings. Why don't you focus solely on your writing? I suggested. Amelia, you're always so supportive. Thank you. I'll give it my best shot, Samuel replied gratefully. So, Samuel left his job and devoted himself entirely to writing. Though life was challenging, witnessing his passion for his work fueled our determination. Then one day, we received a call from my sister, Isabella. She announced her engagement to the startup CEO she had previously mentioned. Next week he's coming over to meet the family before we get married. You should come too. It would be odd if your jobless husband weren't there, so make sure you dress appropriately, she said, her tone condescending. Despite my irritation at Isabella's attitude, I knew we needed to attend her engagement and wedding. With that in mind, Samuel and I decided to join the family gathering. I'm sorry you'll miss your important event that day, Samuel, I said. Don't worry, Amelia. She's your sister, after all, Samuel reassured me. Upon arrival at the venue, Isabella greeted us with a smug expression. Welcome to the antisocial couple. Please be nice to my darling, she quipped. We ignored her jabs and went inside to exchange greetings with Isabella's fiancé. He was flashy and strikingly handsome, a stark contrast to Samuel, but he carried himself confidently in his profession. I'm Amelia, Isabella's sister. It's nice to meet you, I said. And I'm Samuel, Amelia's husband. A pleasure to meet you, Samuel added. As we exchanged greetings, Isabella's fiancé, Vincent, bowed his head politely and responded, Nice to meet you too. I tried my best to ignore my sister's triumphant smile as she stood beside him. At that moment, Samuel's phone rang. I'm sorry, this is important. I need to step outside for a moment, he said. Samuel left the room, and though I was having dinner with our parents, Isabella, and her fiancé, my mind was preoccupied. When Samuel returned, he whispered something in my ear, and I gasped in disbelief. Really? Congratulations, Samuel. That's incredible. I exclaimed, unable to contain my excitement. My mother, surprised by my outburst, asked, What's going on? Not now, Amelia. Samuel's novel just won a major literary award, and it's going to be adapted into a movie. Is that true? Congratulations, Samuel, my mother exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. Yes, that's fantastic news, Samuel. All the support Amelia Carter has given you has paid off. Our parents were thrilled, and Vincent joined in with his own congratulations. That's wonderful news, Samuel. Let's raise a glass to celebrate. I'm sorry, but I have to give some interviews about the award, Samuel said. As Samuel prepared to leave, my mother began to remark, Well, I guess that's it for Samuel and Amelia, when suddenly something unexpected happened involving Isabella. Isabella abruptly stood up from her seat next to Vincent and walked over to us, positioning herself between Samuel and me. Hey, sis, shut up, you ugly, she began in an icy tone. Samuel, why don't we get married? I'm a far better match for a successful, award-winning author like you than someone like Amelia, she suggested with a smirk as she placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder and leaned in close to him. I felt my world shatter around me. Isabella always desired what I had, and once she was done with it, she cast it aside. She consistently belittled Samuel and me, but as family, I had always put up with her. This time, however, I could no longer hold back. A rush of tension surged through me, and I shouted, "That's enough, Isabella. You've always been like this." As I lunged at her, she stumbled back and fell awkwardly to the ground. Samuel, who had been leaning on Isabella, jumped away. Isabella sat on the carpet, stunned, her wide eyes filled with surprise. "What on earth are you doing?" she cried. "That's exactly what I should ask you. What were you thinking?" Supporting my growing belly as our child develops, I pledged to stand by Samuel's side and support him always. Life with Samuel became even more fulfilling as we awaited the arrival of our child. His literary success brought us joy, but it was his unwavering love and dedication that made our lives truly complete. Every day, we found small moments of happiness together, whether it was discussing new book ideas or simply enjoying a quiet evening at home. Despite my sister's continued attempts to interfere in our lives, we remained steadfast in our love for each other. Isabella, unable to find the same happiness we had, grew increasingly bitter. She would often call, trying to stir up trouble, but I had learned to handle her manipulations with grace and firmness. One afternoon, as I was organizing our bookshelf, I came across an old book review I had written in high school. It was one of the first reviews that Samuel had read and borrowed the book based on my recommendation. Holding the review in my hands, I felt a wave of nostalgia and gratitude. It was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had grown together. When Samuel came home that evening, I showed him the review. He smiled, taking my hand in his. "This is where it all began," he said, his eyes filled with love. "I never imagined that a simple book review could lead to such a wonderful life with you." As our due date approached, Samuel took extra care to ensure I was comfortable and happy. He attended every doctor's appointment, read parenting books, and even set up the nursery. We chose a name for our baby together, settling on Elena if it was a girl and Ethan if it was a boy. We were filled with excitement and anticipation for the new chapter in our lives. One night, as we were lying in bed, Samuel turned to me and said, "Amelia, I promise to always cherish you and our child. No matter what challenges come our way, we will face them together." His words brought tears to my eyes, and I knew that no matter what, we would be all right. The day finally arrived when I went into labor. Samuel was by my side every step of the way, holding my hand and offering words of encouragement. After hours of labor, we welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world. We named her Elena, after my favorite literary character. Holding Elena in my arms for the first time was a moment of pure bliss. She was perfect in every way, and I could see so much of Samuel in her. Our families visited us in the hospital, showering us with love and gifts. Even Isabella, despite her previous behavior, came to see us. She stood at the doorway, hesitant and unsure. "Congratulations, Amelia," she said softly, her usual arrogance replaced with an unfamiliar vulnerability. "Thank you, Isabella," I replied, sensing a glimmer of sincerity in her voice. As we settled into our new roles as parents, Samuel and I found a deeper connection with each other. Every smile, every coo from Elena, filled our hearts with immeasurable joy. Samuel's writing flourished even more, inspired by the new addition to our family. His latest works were filled with themes of love, family, and the beauty of everyday moments. Years passed, and our family continued to grow in love and happiness. Elena grew up surrounded by books and stories, inheriting our passion for literature. We taught her the value of kindness, perseverance, and the importance of following one's dreams. Looking back, I realized that every challenge we faced only strengthened our bond. Samuel's unwavering support, our shared love for books, and the joy of raising our daughter brought us a life full of contentment and fulfillment. Despite the chaos and trials brought on by my sister, we found a way to thrive and create a beautiful life together. One evening, as we sat in our cozy living room, Elena curled up with a book on the sofa, Samuel turned to me and said, "Amelia, we've come a long way, haven't we?" I wouldn't trade this life for anything. I smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Neither would I, Samuel. Neither would I. And so, our story continued, filled with love, laughter, and the endless joy of being a family.